Everyone thought Awakening Day had separated Jiang Yuan from his girlfriend forever, because Lin Mushua received an epic class while he received common magic. The school saw a future divine beastmaster standing beside an orphan whose profession looked painfully ordinary, and the whispers turned cruel immediately. Nobody knew Jiang Yuan had awakened something far more terrifying than any colored crystal could measure: the Infinite Augmentation System. Every time he used a skill, its power permanently increased, with no ceiling, no reset, and absolutely no respect for normal class limits. A failed fireball, dealing almost no damage, could become a city-burning meteor if he cast it enough times. A bargain movement spell could evolve into a wind domain, impossible speed, and eventually a contract with a legendary Void Phoenix Empress. While Lin Mushua's family dragged her away to protect their epic genius, they warned Jiang Yuan to disappear from her life. He did not argue, because anger without strength was noise, and he had already discovered the fastest path to overwhelming power. He bought the cheapest spell in the store, entered a beginner dungeon alone, and fired it at a mechanical hound. The first shot barely scratched the monster, making the machine look almost offended by the pathetic flame. Then the system doubled the skill, doubled it again, and kept stacking until the same trash spell became artillery. Within days, a common mage was erasing bosses, frightening city leaders, and creating disasters mistaken for attacks from hidden saints. His jealous rivals still believed one professional assassin could remove him quietly in the wilderness. The Federation believed a mysterious flame god had appeared near Shanghai, never realizing the legendary expert was an 18-year-old student. Lin Mushua promised she would become strong enough to protect him, unaware Jiang Yuan was already becoming 100 times more dangerous. And this entire nightmare began on the playground, when one purple awakening stole everyone's attention while a faint white glow hid the real monster. I stood on the playground of Shanghai First High School, surrounded by thousands of students in identical uniforms. Today was Awakening Day, the moment every 18-year-old in Blue Star lived for. It was the day we would finally find out if we had what it took to become awakeners. Close your eyes, clear your minds. He wore heavy mage robes and carried himself with the weight of a man who had reached level 120 as a 4-turn mage. As he spoke, the crystal ball surged. Waves of elemental energy poured out, sinking into the students' bodies. A second later, the platform erupted in light. Shishang, combat class, warrior, common grade, Li Queen, lifestyle class, idol trainee, elite grade. Principal Xiao waved his hand, his expression staying flat. Next group. Getting an elite grade was great, but being an idol trainee was useless for actual fighting. Fan Yunjiang was the real winner. Everyone wanted a healer on their team, even if they were slow to level up in the beginning. I stayed quiet, waiting in line. My heart was thumping against my ribs. I had been waiting 18 years for this moment. Monsters roamed the streets, cities were leveled, and humanity nearly went extinct, filled with treasures, dungeons, and secret realms. Now at 18, we could awaken into professions, gain levels, and learn skills to fight back. Are you nervous? A soft, delicate hand slid into mine. I was an orphan, but I had clawed my way to the top of the rankings at this school. Lin Mushua had started asking me for tutoring back in 10th grade, and we've been inseparable ever since. We never officially announced anything, but everyone knew. I gave her a small, confident smile. I can smell the romance from here. Think about us poor single dogs, will you? He was a mountain of a man, nearly 7 feet tall and built like a tank. He was a perfect candidate for a frontline warrior. Lin Mushua blushed and quickly let go of my hand. Seriously though, Jiang Yuan Xiaobao asked, his grin fading slightly. What do you think we'll get? I'm not a prophet. Bao, as long as it's not a lifestyle class. I'm happy. Combat classes like warriors, mages, and assassins were the heroes on the front lines. Support classes like priests and doctors were rare and highly valued. But lifestyle classes, painters, singers, blacksmiths, they were the bottom of the barrel. Unless you were a top-tier alchemist or artificer, you had zero status. Less than 10% ever awakened as support. Xiao Bao said, I bet you'll get something legendary. I just want to be a warrior. Above those were blue rare, purple epic, golden legendary, and the mythical rainbow mythic. The higher the grade, the higher your potential. From your mouth to God's ears, I replied. It didn't matter how hard you studied. Our group of 10 walked up the steps. As I got closer to the crystal ball, I could feel the raw elemental energy vibrating in the air. It felt like static electricity dancing on my skin. Principal Xiao's eyes lingered on us for a moment. He raised his staff high with heaven and earth as the guide and bloodline as the vessel. The crystal ball shattered the sunlight into a billion shimmering points of light that rained down on us. The moment the energy touched my skin, it felt like a dam breaking inside me. A warm, massive power surged through my veins, filling every corner of my soul. A blinding light tore through my vision. It looked like a tidal wave crashing over the platform. And then, in a flash, it turned a piercing electric sky blue. It deepened into a rich royal purple. Thousands of eyes were fixed on the high platform, staring at the tall figure enveloped in that thick purple glow. That's an epic grade class. Is it the top student? Jiang Yuan. A wave of gasps and exclamations rippled through the crowd. Suddenly, the air around Lin Mushua began to spin violently. A white honeycomb-like pattern formed beneath her feet, kicking up a storm of light particles. Her clothes fluttered wildly, and her long hair lifted in the wind like the wings of a butterfly, ready to take flight. This was the raw energy of the wind element. A ghostly silhouette of light and shadow began to weave together behind her. The storm at her feet stopped being chaotic. Instead, it fused with her purple mental energy, creating a spiraling field that made the very space around her ripple. His sharp eyes were locked onto the center of the platform. The crystal ball's energy suddenly contracted, surging into Lin Mushua's body with terrifying force. The other 9 of us on stage felt like flickering candles next to a bonfire. Our energy combined wasn't even a tenth of hers. They were made of cayenne wind, their edges shimmering with purple specks of mental energy, like stars in a night sky. A clear melodic cry echoed across the playground, sounding like a call from ancient times. Lin Mushua slowly opened her eyes. One pupil held the swirling patterns of the wind. The other held the purple mark of the spirit. The wind was an extension of her own limbs. She could even dive into their minds if she wanted to. The Azure Phoenix phantom circled one last time before shrinking into a beam of light that vanished into her forehead, leaving a tiny bird mark behind. As the purple light faded, Lin Mushua quickly turned to look at me. I was standing there with my eyes closed, covered in a faint, dull white glow. Infinite Augmentation SYSTEM activated the system. Do you have any idea how I've lived these past 18 years, Jiang Yuan? Are you okay? Lin Mushua's worried voice pulled me back. I opened my eyes and saw the faint remnants of the Azure Phoenix spirit behind her. The results were up for everyone to see. Lin Mushua, Combat Class. Azure Phoenix, Covenant Master. Epic Grade. Zhao Bao, Support Class. Priest, Common Grade. Among the Sea of Common. White text. Lin Mushua. Epic rank was blindingly noble. Always ranked first and second in grades. But now our destinies had split wide apart. The top student had become a common mage. Lin Mushua, meanwhile, was now a being beyond reach. It was the first time I'd ever seen him lose his cool, even with all my studying. I hadn't come across this specific class in the textbooks. The Qingwan is a divine beast of wind and spirit. To think it reappeared today. At her peak, she'll be able to summon the actual divine Azure Phoenix to fight by her side. He didn't even bother calling the next group up. This one girl was enough to put our school at the top of the entire city, even though it's labeled epic, because it involves a divine beast and dual elements. Its potential is equal to a legendary gold class. He then looked at me, his excitement cooling into a trace of pity and disappointment. As for you, a mage is, well, it's all right. My only goal was a combat class. I had already skimmed the system's functions. Every time I used a skill, its power would double permanently, and it stacked infinitely. With a system like that, who cares if I'm a common mage? I'll eventually be stronger than any epic or mythic hero. He's right, Lin Mushua said, her beautiful eyes searching mine. We can level up together. I guess I'll be living off your hard work then. Our relationship hadn't changed just because our grades did. She wasn't becoming arrogant, and I wasn't feeling inferior. Hey, can you two think about the single dog standing right here? Zhao Bao was a 2 am tall mountain of a man built like a tank. Yet he had awakened as a priest. Stop complaining, Lin Mushua said, glancing at him. We'll take you with us when we go grinding. I might be a priest, Xiao Bao said with a grin. Support classes were notoriously weak in the early stages, but their importance was undeniable. Plus, during a fight, they usually stayed in the back, keeping everyone healthy while staying out of the line of fire. A priest doesn't have to just be a support, I told him, thinking back to the theory I had mastered. In this world, the class awakening was just the starting line. Every 30 levels, a professional could undergo a job advancement. This was exactly why I wasn't discouraged about being a common mage. My future depended on how I developed my skills, and of course, I had a literal god-tier system backing me up. So, should we head to the dungeon plaza now? Even though Lin Mushua's Azure Phoenix contractor class was epic tier, she was still technically a magic user. If we ran into monsters with high magic resistance, she and I would both be useless. We were missing physical damage and a real frontline tank. The moment Xiao Bao finished speaking, a crowd of students who had awakened as tanks, warriors, and archers swarmed us. I'm an elite-grade demon blood warrior, Mushua. I awakened as a rare hurricane mage. Having another magic user won't hurt, right? I'm a stealth assassin. I can scout the monsters and make sure the team stays safe. They knew that teaming up with the school's top 2 stars, Lin Yuan and Lin Mushua, was a golden ticket to easy leveling. Even as a common mage, I had a reputation for perfect grades and flawless tactical simulations. If you want to join, meet us in front of the novice dungeon later. Under normal circumstances, I would have picked the best candidates. But with my system, I had a massive secret to keep. Bringing strangers along was a risk I couldn't take. As we walked away, I heard a cold snort behind us. Just a common mage acting like he's still the top student? An orphan mage like him isn't fit to shine my shoes. The speaker was Zhao Luochun, a high and mighty teenager who had awakened as a rare grade hurricane mage. In the school rankings, Lin Mushua was number 1, and he was a bitter number 2. With the Lin family's power and her talent, she'll dump that loser soon enough. A toad trying to eat swan meat? He came from the Zhao family, one of the 4 great families of Shanghai City. She's a phoenix, Zhao Luochun muttered, pulling out his smart bracelet to send a message. A commoner orphan has no place beside her. I don't even need to do anything. Her family will tear them apart for me. He would wait for them to break up, then step in to claim Lin Mushua. My mind was focused on the system interface floating in my vision. Infinite Augmentation SYSTEM. Every time a skill is used, its power increases by 100% permanently. Every 10 uses, power increases by 10 times and unlocks a special effect. I couldn't use high-level long cooldown spells. I needed skills with the shortest possible cooldowns and the lowest mana costs. If a spell took 2 hours to refresh, I'd never stack the buffs. It was packed with professionals buying and selling monster materials, gear, and skill books. The moment I stepped inside, the noise of the street vanished, replaced by an invisible barrier of silence. The air smelled of old ink and ancient wood. The ceiling was impossibly high, supported by dark gold pillars that looked like they belonged in an ancient tomb. This was where my journey would truly begin. Gold plaques hung from each row, displaying categories in ancient script, skill scrolls, books of knowledge, attribute pages, secret technique scrolls, and ancient tombs. Next to every item, there was a price tag and a detailed description. People moved through the aisles in an orderly fashion, while staff members in green robes embroidered with a Heavenly Book logo assisted customers. "What can I help you find today?" a pretty female clerk asked, approaching us with a professional smile. It was crowded, mostly with people who looked like students. Since today was Awakening Day, the Heavenly Book Pavilion was running a massive promotion to lure in the new class of professionals. They were likely selling at a loss just to build brand loyalty with us early on. "Let's go check it out," I said. I scanned the shelves quickly to get my bearings. Skill scrolls were the main way for professionals to learn new abilities. Books of knowledge provided skill points to level them up. Then there were secret technique scrolls, which held the sealed power of high-level professionals, and ancient tombs, which contained lost secrets from dangerous ruins. "An offensive one?" I said without hesitation. I had done my homework long before today. My current stats were basic. Level 0, with 10 points in strength, spirit, agility, and constitution. My talent, magic proficiency. Let me learn any basic spell from any branch of magic. The downside was that I was a jack of all trades. I didn't get the massive damage bonuses that specialized mages, like a pure fire mage, would receive. You should pick one element and stick to it. You're a mythical tier Azure Phoenix envoy. Buying these common skills seems like a waste of your potential. If you filled them with junk early on, you'd ruin your future. I'm just looking for now, she said softly. As an Azure Phoenix envoy, she could use wind and spirit magic, plus summoning skills. She needed something legendary to match her tier. I'm going to check over there, Xiaobao said, pointing toward the priest section. My eyes landed on a glowing red scroll. Source Flame City Dungeon. Description: compresses fire energy into a sharp bolt. Deals piercing fire damage with a chance to explode? Lin Mushua's surprised voice pulled me away from the shelf. A woman in a dark form-fitting cheaphouse stood next to her. Her hair was held up by a jade hairpin, and she carried the confident air of someone in charge. I should ask you the same thing, the woman said, her voice smooth and teasing. Coming here without telling me. Do you not see me as your sister anymore? Her eyes, sharp and playful, shifted from Lin Mushua to me. Lin Mushua blushed instantly. She's the manager of this branch of the Heavenly Book Pavilion. The Heavenly Book Pavilion was more than just a store. Even here in Shanghai City, this single branch held massive influence. They dominated the skill scroll market, controlling over 90% of the trade. I looked at Shi Junyao, realizing her relationship with Lin Mushua was deeper than I thought. If Lin Mushua was a budding white peony, Sun Yao was a mature blooming red rose. See any skills you like? Since you're with Mushua, I'll give you one for free. To her, I was just a handsome face with a mediocre class. She was only here because of Lin Mushua. Word of Mushua's epic tier awakening as an Azure Phoenix contractor had already spread across the city. It was the first epic awakening in 17 years. No thanks, I said, shaking my head. I haven't done anything to deserve such a gift, Mushua pouted, shaking Shi Junyao's arm. If my little sister asks, how could I refuse? We have scrolls perfect for Azure Phoenix, but we need your father's permission first. Suddenly, Shi Junyao's gaze shifted toward the entrance. A man and a woman were pushing through the crowd, heading straight for us with aggressive strides. Fourth lady, the man said, nodding briefly to Shi Junyao. He was in his 30s and looked frantic. I'll go back later, Mushua said, shrinking back slightly. I already promised my classmate we'd run a dungeon together. Do you have any idea how much noise your awakening caused? If you want to level up, you do it under family protection. He turned to me, his expression turning cold. I'm here on the orders of the clan head to take her home. Mushua is the eldest daughter of the Lin family. She can afford to be naive, but not anymore. She is the future of our clan. He was reminding me that she was an epic tier genius and I was an orphan with a basic mage class. He was telling me to disappear before things got ugly. The woman behind him moved like a blur. Suddenly, a crushing pressure filled the room. I could only watch as the woman reached Mushua. Mushua, I tried to shout, but she was already gone. In the blink of an eye, both she and the woman had vanished. Don't worry, she's safe, Lin Yuan said, standing right in front of me. And we don't want you making a mistake either. Which path I take is none of your business, I replied. I didn't like his arrogance one bit. You aren't the same kind of people. Mushua is a person, not a tool. Her happiness should matter more than your mission. In a great family, your fate is tied to the clan. You can't break that bond unless you become powerful enough to stop the entire family from interfering. The Lin family had looked into me before. If I had awakened a powerful class, they might have even encouraged it. But there were no ifs in this world. To them, a common mage was trash. That day will come, I said, looking him straight in the eyes. If you don't, you might just disappear one day, and nobody will even know you're dead. He gave me one last look of pure contempt, then turned to Shi Junyao with a polite smile. I watched him walk away. My fists clenched so tight, my knuckles turned white. It was a world of the strong eating the weak. My friend had been dragged away, and her family had just threatened my life. I felt the fire burning in my chest. I looked calm, maybe even indifferent, which seemed to surprise her. You don't look angry at all, she noted. Studying my expression, I wasn't lying, but I wasn't being entirely honest either. Inside, I was fuming, but logic had taken the wheel. But Lin Yuan wasn't just talking trash. For Mushua's sake, don't pick a fight with the Lin family right now. She thought I was a pebble trying to smash a boulder. She didn't realize that even a pebble can start an avalanche if it hits the right spot. Don't worry, I said with a slight nod. I won't make things difficult for her. I saw Flame Wave, a Tier 1 fire skill. It dealt massive area damage in a 5M cone and left enemies burning. It was a top-tier skill priced at 5,000 gold. Then there was Lightning Refinement for 3,500 and Windblade for 1,200. Because of my Infinite Augmentation system, I needed the lowest cooldowns possible. A massive nuke that I could only fire once a minute was useless to me compared to a weak spell I could fire every second. I had less than 1,000 gold in this world. That was enough to live on for a while, but it was pocket change for a professional awakened. Skill Fireball. Description condenses a tiny amount of fire element into a ball the size of an egg. It called the scroll a failed replica and said it was more of a collector's item than a functional skill. He was a level 5 master appraiser. In this city, there were barely 5 people at level 4, and Suhan was the only level 5. Why would a master waste his time appraising a piece of junk? A 2-second cooldown. That was unheard of. With my system, negligible damage wouldn't stay negligible for long. This has been sitting here for 6 months. Even at a 99% discount, the transaction took less than a minute. I walked away with the scroll, feeling a surge of excitement. Xiao Bao popped up from the crowd, clutching a stack of books. He had spent his entire life savings on basic attribute pages and a single skill. We'll have to rely on mob drops for gear. But I hear the drop rates in the novice dungeon are trash. In his eyes, the gap between a commoner and the Lin family was a canyon we couldn't cross. We headed toward the dungeon plaza, high above in the pavilion. Shi Junyao watched us from a window. She had been notified the moment I bought the scroll. That fireball scroll was actually the very first one she had ever created. Now it was time to level up. The scroll I bought was more than just a piece of paper. To see Junyao watching me from her window, there was no way I actually planned to use that fireball skill as my primary attack. To her, I didn't seem like the type of idiot who would make such a basic mistake. Xiao Bowo and I arrived at the dungeon plaza, and the place was pure chaos. Only 700 gold, health and mana potions on sale, looking for a rank 2 tank. Ever since the Abyss invaded reality, the world had changed. Dungeons, secret realms, wilderness, ruins, and the Abyss itself. No matter how much damage you caused inside, they reset to their original state after a while. You could run them as many times as you wanted, though the rewards dropped significantly after the first clear. In a city like Shanghai, the powerful families and guilds controlled everything. They had literally moved stable dungeons into the city limits to keep them safe. The only upside for a rookie like me was the low mortality rate. Most of these places had been cleared so many times that you could buy a step-by-step guide on how to survive. We reached the teleportation gates for the novice dungeons. Groups of students from Shanghai High were already huddling together, forming teams. A boy named Lu Hong walked over holding a Magitech rifle. He had a team of 4 behind him. Xiao Bao and I were still wearing our faded school uniforms, which provided 0 protection. Xiao Bao looked tempted. Back at school, people only asked us to team up because of Mushua. Now that she was gone, a basic mage and a basic priest weren't exactly high-demand recruits. We've got a Thundercaster, a Wind Hunter, and a Berserker, Lu Hong said confidently. We are all elite tier classes with full gear. We'll breeze through the dungeon. We just need a healer to top us off. Rare and epic classes were 1 in a million. So an all-elite team was top tier for students. Novice dungeons didn't have a strict player limit, but 5 was the sweet spot. Any more than that, and the experience points got spread too thin, the loot drops became a nightmare to divide. Lu Hong looked at me with a polite, apologetic smile. Honestly, with our setup, we'll be fine. But a priest just makes it safer. He knew I was a top student, but in this world, grades didn't matter as much as your class tier. With my system, I didn't want anyone watching me. Even someone as close as Xiao Bao would eventually start asking questions I couldn't answer. No way. Xiaobao snapped. Don't be stupid, I said, grabbing his arm. Healers have a hard time leveling up early on. Elite classes usually look down on common ones. After a bit more convincing, Xiaobao finally gave in and joined Lu Hang's squad. I watched them disappear through the dungeon gate. Then I walked up to the dungeon guard and showed him my student ID. Novice dungeons only go up to level 10. But they're still dangerous for a fresh awakening, he warned, his voice flat. You sure you don't want a team? You have unlimited access to the 5 novice dungeons during that time. You can teleport out whenever you finish. Or if you get into trouble, activate the pass, Shadowhunter Valley, Ruins of the Uncontrolled City, the Machine Graveyard, the Lava Lands, the Pure Land Mine. I took a deep breath and made my choice. It was time to see what a one tiny fireball could really do. The first one was discovered 500 years ago, around the same time Shanghai City was built. I scanned the list and made my choice. My head spun for a second as the world blurred. I stood on a pile of jagged metal wreckage under a sky choked with thick, glowing energy fog. Beneath my boots, skeletal mechanical limbs groaned and scraped, making a sharp, grating sound with every step I took. According to the guides, this place was a failed experimental site from a forgotten high-tech era. It was a wasteland of haywire machinery and leaking energy. The monsters here were born from that radiation, constantly pulling scrap metal together to form new twisted shapes. A harsh metallic scraping cut through my thoughts. To my left, the wreckage of a mechanical dog twitched to life. It was built from tarnished brass, with a heavy boiler humming in its chest. This was a perk of novice dungeons. In the wild or higher level zones, you needed a specific scouting skill to see this data. Name Mechanical Hound, Race Machine Level 1, Attack 16, Defense 33, Health 250. Talent Self-Repair. Skill Cruise Hunt. I raised my hand and fired a fireball. I checked its health. 249. It had taken exactly 1 point of damage. It almost felt like it was mocking me. These things were common here because they were fast and had high physical defense. Their only weakness was a total lack of magic resistance. But my failure of a spell was too weak to exploit it. Fireball used. This fireball was noticeably larger. It hit the hound with a dull thud. 2 seconds later, I launched a third. By the time I reached the 10 cast, the system voice changed. Fireball multiplier has reached 10 times. The system informed me I could toggle these effects whenever I wanted. The fire element in my palm went wild, turning a deep, angry orange. The glow reflected off my face as 9 fireballs, each the size of a soccer ball, manifested in the air. They flew in a perfect line, one after another. They slammed into the hound in a brutal sequence. Even a top-tier first turn spell wouldn't be this strong. Killed level 1 mechanical hound? You have leveled up to level 1. Getting from level 0 to level 1 only took 10 experience points. So 1 kill did the trick. Level 2 required 100 points, but the stat boost was massive. For a common class like mine, I got 10 free points per level. Elite classes got 20, and epic classes like Mushua got 40. Usually, the gap between a commoner and a genius only gets wider as they level up. As a mage, everything depended on my spirit attribute. It was the root of my power. The higher it went, the more devastating my spells became. It boosted my damage and my skill efficiency. If I wasted points on Constitution, I'd only get 5 measly health points. If I put points into agility, I'd only get 5 points of speed, while an assassin or archer would get double that. As I leveled up, that divide would only grow. I dumped every single free attribute point into spirit. If I was too slow, I'd find a wind spell. If my health was too low, I'd hunt for a skill that converted mana into a shield. Putting points anywhere else was just stupid. I pushed all 10 points into spirit, bringing it to 30. The sound of grinding metal echoed across the wasteland. Dark mechanical tentacles burst from the cracks in the ground. Dozens of glowing red eyes flickered to life in the shadows. The noise from my last fight had woken the graveyard. They were only level 1 and 2, but the sheer number of them was suffocating. Any other student team would have turned and run. Fire elements converged in my palm, deepening from a bright orange to a heavy molten crimson. 9 basketball-sized fireballs shrieked through the air, trailing plumes of intense heat. They slammed into the lead hounds with a series of muffled explosions, melting brass chassis into puddles of slag instantly. I threw fireballs like they cost me nothing. If anyone had been watching, their jaws would have hit the floor. A level 1 common mage shouldn't be able to spam high-intensity spells like this. But for me, each cast only took 2 seconds and cost a measly 2 mana points. Killed level 1 mechanical hound, gained 9 experience, 1 skill XP. Killed level 2 mechanical hound, killed level 6 mechanical hound, gained 180 XP. 1 skill XP dropped mechanical equipment. The notifications blurred together as the flames rose. Level up to level 3. All attributes plus 10. 10 free points gained. All attributes plus 10. 10 free points gained. I dumped all the new points into spirit again. Every awakened had a 100 slots for storage, and mine was starting to fill with scrap. I checked my system. My fireball was currently at a 35 times amplification. The 9-star Lotus effect was strong, but I needed 65 more casts to hit the 100 times threshold. I started walking deeper into the core of the graveyard, casting fireballs into the smoke just to keep the count rising. Meanwhile, in another part of the graveyard, things weren't going so well. He was a berserker, the only melee fighter in his team, and he was currently being swarmed by mechanical arms. His armor was dented, his body was covered in gashes, and his health was plummeting. His skills were still on a 50-second cooldown. "Hold on," Xiao Bao shouted, rushing forward. Xiao Bao was a healer, but he was stepping up to the front line to split the pressure. In the back, their leader, Luo Xing, raised his Magitech rifle, firing rounds into the brass holes of the hounds. A lightning caster and a wind hunter joined in, their spells and arrows flying wildly. They were a new team, messy and uncoordinated, but they were fighting for their lives. Eventually, the last hound in their area fell. He looked up and saw Xiao Bao, his face bruised and battered, offering a tired smile. Xiao Yang grunted, finally catching his breath. Xiao Yang hadn't really respected Xiao Bao at first. He realized Xiao Bao was a teammate he could actually trust, someone who would put his own life on the line when things got ugly. Most professional squads are forged in the fires of battle like this. It's not just about power or coordination. "Don't mention it," Xiao Bao said, offering a weak smile. "We all thought a novice dungeon would be a walk in the park. Even with a team of 4 elite tier fighters and a healer, we were barely scraping by. It turned out that studying in a classroom was just empty talk. You don't know how brutal combat is until you're bleeding out on the ground. Every year, plenty of students die in these beginner zones because they get arrogant. We were too reckless just now," Lu Hong said, breaking the silence. He was the leader, and he was already analyzing our mistakes. "We'll stay on the outskirts, hunt some stray mechanical hunters, and get everyone's level up first." He pulled out a map marked with red dots. Right in the heart of the map, there was a patch so red it looked black. I had no idea my buddy Xiao Bao was worried about me. A fireball, bright as a miniature sun, stirred through the air and slammed into a 6-foot tall mechanical monster. I had used fireball again. Since I reached the 100-fold mark, a new special effect unlocked. Now, when my fireballs hit a target or traveled a certain distance, they triggered a massive explosion. It dealt splash damage, caused heavy internal bleeding, and had a chance to stun with a 100 times damage boost and flame burst. This basic spell was now stronger than most Tier 2 fire magic. Fireball was supposed to have the lowest base stats in the game. Nothing in my path, not even level 10 mechanical monsters, could survive a single hit. Suddenly, the ground groaned under a weight it couldn't support. A nearby ruin collapsed, and a mechanical beast the size of a small mountain slowly stood up. It was built from dark purple super alloy standing 3 stories tall. This was the boss of the mechanical graveyard, the Desolation Steel Colossus Guslam, level 10. Strength 148, Constitution 480, Health 220,000. It had a passive called Desolation Body, and skills like Electromagnetic Pulse and the Ghostly Desolation Cannon. My own health was only 300. As a level 5 mage, I was as fragile as glass. The boss looked intimidating. I focused, and the fire elements around me went wild. 9 blazing fireballs condensed in front of me, each one the size of a wash basin. They hovered in an arc, looking like a cluster of falling stars. "In the name of flame," I whispered, "burn everything." The 9 fireballs shrieked through the air, pulled by an invisible force. The first fireball slammed into a joint in its torso. The metal turned a dull cherry red instantly, and the shield flickered and shattered. Before the Colossus could even react, the second, third, and fourth fireballs hit the exact same spot. Each one carried enough force to level a building. The fire behaved like a caged beast, finally set free, tearing through the graveyard. When the smoke cleared, the massive chest plate was gone. The internal wiring had melted into a puddle of black slag. The destruction was massive, but for me, it was just one cast. Yet, the damage was easily tier 2. Maybe even tier 3 level. I realized then that I didn't need to waste time learning high-level spells with long cooldowns. I had killed the level 10 boss. I gained 5,000 experience points and 10 skill experience. I picked up 5 stacks of metal materials, a steel mechanical heart, and a book called Guzlam's Growth Notes. There were also 3 pieces of unidentified gear. I had achieved the first clear of the mechanical graveyard. My vision blurred for a second as my level jumped straight to level 7. Since I was soloing, I didn't have to share a single scrap of experience with anyone else. I leveled up fast, between the boss kill and the experience bonus for fighting higher level enemies. I had reached level 7 in record time. For me, with the Infinite Augmentation system, it was as easy as breathing. I needed to stack my casts. Boom, boom, boom. Even though the boss was dead, I didn't stop. Every 2 seconds, I launched another fireball into the ruins, carving massive craters into the scrap metal. The attribute pages and the Book of Knowledge were great. I pulled up my status panel to see where I stood. I was a level 7 mage. I dumped every single attribute point I gained from leveling, and the bonus pages straight into spirit. My fireball was now level 2. To level it again, I needed 4 skill points, so I decided to save what I had for now. In this world, skills had a clear progression. A level 100 fireball was still just a fireball. A tier 1 fireball could evolve into a tier 2 burst, then a tier 3 flame feather, and eventually a tier 4 falling meteor. Advancing a skill meant it shared the same slot, allowing a powerful mage to master every form of a spell from tier 1 to tier 9. It sounded perfect, but the cost was staggering. You needed deep knowledge, rare skill scrolls, and massive financial backing. I looked at my system and realized I was bypassing that entire struggle. Yet, I was using a basic tier 1 spell. Other mages were restricted by their rank. But here, I was still in the novice stage, already wielding the power of a tier 3 spell. A single fireball would eventually carry the weight of a forbidden curse. I felt a surge of heat in my chest. If I could fire a forbidden curse every 2 seconds, would Lin Yuan still dare to look down on me? Would the Lin family still try to keep Mushua away? They'd be begging me to take her. At this rate, 3 days would be enough. Another Hunfold fireball rocked the graveyard. A notification flickered in front of my eyes. The dungeon was a closed space. No one could see what I was doing or how fast I was growing. This was the perfect place to farm my multipliers. It was the source of every mechanical hound and monster in this zone. Most players killed the boss and left because destroying the factory provided almost no rewards. A team once stayed here for a month, killing over 10,000 mechanical monsters. They unlocked a hidden title, Mechanical Hunter. It slightly increased affinity with machinery and reduced skill cooldowns by exactly 1 second. For a mage whose spells took minutes or hours to cooldown, 1 second was a joke. But for me, my cooldown was only 2 seconds. I hiked toward the dark tunnel entrance leading underground. Dozens of glowing red eyes peered out from the shadows. A pack of mechanical hounds lunged at me, snarling through metal teeth. I raised my hand and sent a fireball screaming into the tunnel, vaporizing the entire pack instantly. I wasn't going to destroy the factory. Was this a bug in the system? I had no intention of exploring the underground factory. This dungeon had been open for hundreds of years. Every inch of it had been mapped out by others long ago. There were no secrets left to find, only monsters to kill. I pulled a spirit potion from my bag and downed it in one go. I unleashed 9 massive fireballs, each the size of a wagon wheel. 9 deep crimson craters scarred the earth, followed by a roar that shook the very foundation of the dungeon. Columns of magma erupted from the ground, reaching toward the ceiling. They twisted and surged, morphing into 9 giant fire dragons. The sky turned the color of molten gold. Sparks fell like burning rain, exploding into tiny fires wherever they touched the ground. Within seconds, everything for hundreds of meters was transformed into a literal hellscape. The temperature spiked to over 500 degrees. If I weren't inside the dungeon, this single attack would have leveled the entire city plaza and the surrounding business districts. I thought about Xia Hong, the principal of my high school. He had spent his entire life reaching the 4th rank as a mage. Rumor had it, the strongest person in Shanghai City was the city lord, a 5th rank powerhouse. But I forced myself to stay calm. I was firing off 4th rank spells every 2 seconds, but I was still a glass cannon. My level wasn't even 10 yet. To a real expert, I needed to keep a low profile. If anyone found out my secret, I'd be hunted down or locked in a lab. Shanghai City was just a small base in the Nanjiang province. It was protected by steel walls and magic arrays, a tiny safe haven in a world overrun by monsters. It was nothing compared to the capital, Nanjiang City, which housed over 100 million people and countless high-level experts. I needed to be humble, at least until I was truly invincible. Once I hit level 10, I would unlock a new skill slot. I raised my hand and fired a simple tiny fireball. I had 2 goals, 10,000 kills for the Mechanical Hunter title and pushing my multiplier even higher. I had killed another level 10 Mechanical Hound, 300 experience points, 1 skill point. My attributes increased, and that new skill slot finally clicked open. I had hit the level cap for the Mechanical Graveyard. I wouldn't gain any more experience here. It was hard to believe I had reached level 10 in less than a day. Usually, it took weeks of grueling work for a normal person to get this far, but my level didn't reflect my true combat power. As I cast 1 more fireball, the system chimed again. Fireball multiplier has reached 10 times. I felt a surge of heat that made the previous spells feel like candles. A pillar of flame shot straight into the sky, warping the very air. The sky above me seemed to tear open. Huge rifts appeared, and from those cracks, fire poured out. They were massive chunks of volcanic rock wrapped in white-hot flames. Thousands of meteors were a web of fire that covered the entire horizon. When the flaming meteors finally struck the ground, the world exploded. Roar after roar shook the earth, sending pillars of crimson light shooting into the sky. The ground was instantly riddled with molten craters, and glowing lava began to spill everywhere, dissolving metal, ruins, and even the dirt into nothingness. Every inch of the land was consumed by the Heaven-Burning Meteor. As far as I could see, there was only a sea of red fire, the only figure left standing in a world of destruction. Even I was stunned by the sheer terror of this skill. The Mechanical Graveyard had become a world of fire. The power was so immense that the dungeon world couldn't contain it. I realized that if I cast this spell 1 more time, the entire dungeon might actually collapse. If I destroyed the dungeon forever, things would get very complicated with the authorities. I immediately shut off the multipliers and the special effects. For the next 3 days, I went back to basics, casting simple single fireballs one after another to grind my proficiency. I had killed 10,000 mechanical monsters. I had to equip it and display it publicly for the effect to work. There was no limit to how many achievements I could earn, but I could only wear 9 at a time. Achievements were ranked like everything else: white, green, blue, purple, gold, and rainbow. My fireball originally had a 2-second cooldown. Now I could fire them every second. My fireball multiplier had reached 49,800 times. 9-star Lotus, Flame Burst Impact, Magma Dragon Pillars, and the Heaven-Burning Meteor. With the cooldown reduction, the process would be twice as fast. However, I decided it was time to leave. I was capped at level 10, and the dungeon space was too fragile for my growing power. Most importantly, now that I was level 10, I could learn new skills. I was a glass cannon, and that was a dangerous way to live. I hid my title and stepped through the exit portal. I emerged back at the Novice Dungeon Plaza. Most had already leveled up, and moved on to higher-tier dungeons or the leveling zones outside the base city. After killing over 10,000 monsters, I only had about 200 pieces of metal materials and basic gear. I headed to a nearby buyback shop to clear out my inventory. The shop owner was a shrewd old man with squinty eyes and a permanent fake smile. He looked over my haul and nodded. That was more than my parents' total savings. But for a professional, it wasn't even enough to buy a decent skill scroll. My shop has a great reputation, the old man said, seeing my expression. Anywhere else, you wouldn't even get 1,500. Gear dropped from monsters usually came in an unidentified state. You needed an appraiser to unlock their stats before you could even wear them. Novice dungeon loot just wasn't worth much. As I was finishing the deal, a group of 5 young people walked in. They looked about my age, probably students from another school. Boss, do you buy skill scrolls? Selling to a buyback shop was a sign of desperation. Let me see, the old man said. Pan Yuni handed over a scroll etched with faint green patterns. I could feel a slight breeze emanating from it. You can't find a skill scroll on the market for less than 1,000. Most go for 2,000 or 3,000. Young man, there's a difference between a buyback price and a retail price. The girl in the group, Kong Jining, pleaded. If it's too low, we might as well just go to the Heavenly Book Pavilion. Little girl, this scroll dropped in a novice dungeon, didn't it? Nothing truly great comes out of those places. They probably offered you 900 gold. Didn't they consider the extra 50 a fee for your trouble of walking over here? Pen Yuni and his friends looked at each other in shock. Every word he said was exactly right. Selling it for less than 1,000 feels like a total scam. Kong Jining suggested looking at the leader. It's a waste of a skill slot. Actually, 950 isn't that bad. If we're going to level up in the wilderness, we need real equipment. It's way more dangerous out there than in the novice dungeons. I watched them huddle together, whispering frantically. In the eyes of these students, the skill was garbage. This was the shop owner's territory, and it was bad for him to jump in on a deal. Learning it takes up a slot that you could use for something actually useful. Most people wouldn't take it, even if it were free. A blank Tier 1 scroll is worth at least 1,000 gold. But once a trash skill is etched onto it, the value actually drops. I remembered the Fireball scroll. It had been made by a scroll master. That meant skills didn't just come from monster drops. Is it hard to make skill books? If I could learn to make my own, I wouldn't be at the mercy of the market. He was an appraiser himself, so I trusted his word. You have to be epic tier just to start. They can create, copy, improve, and even invent brand new skills. Every major power treats them like royalty. I thought back to the Fireball scroll I possessed. Even if it was a failure, it had been evaluated by a level 5 appraiser. You know how skill progression works, right? Collecting a full set of matching skills is a nightmare. If you're unlucky and miss that one crucial book, your skills might never evolve. I was just a student who had recently awakened. Yet, I had walked in here with hundreds of materials from the machine graveyard. To him, I was either incredibly strong or incredibly well connected. Either way, he wanted to stay on my good side. We're losing money here. 1,000 is fine. The owner agreed easily. The owner turned to me and slid the certificate across the counter. It listed the skill haste Tier 1. Description: feel the wind element to gain a very slight movement speed boost. Cooldown 8 seconds. Cost 5 mana. It said the boost was negligible and the duration was too short to be useful in real combat. It was labeled bottom tier among haste spells with an estimated value between 800 and 1,200 gold. The skill was weak, but I saw something they didn't. Most high-level haste spells had massive boosts, but took minutes to recharge. I already had the insane power of my 10,000 times magnified fireball. I needed to be able to move. 1,000 gold, the owner said. Just promise me that when you have more loot to sell, you'll come to me first. It was a fair price, and having a reliable contact for my loot was worth more than a few gold coins. It was time to see what my talent could do with a trash utility skill. I didn't see any problem with the owner's offer. Like he said, more friends meant more paths. Keep an eye out for similar skill books for me, I said, adding a small request of my own, and a low mana consumption, specifically for mage-type skills. I pulled out my smart bracelet and swapped contact info. Signals were blocked inside dungeon instances and most wilderness areas. You only got a full signal once you were back within the safety of the base city. I scrolled through them one by one. We cleared the dungeon. The messages continued over the next few days. I hit level 3. The team wants to head outside the city to grind. The monsters in the dungeon give too little XP. It looked like Xiao Bao joining Luo Xing's team was a smart move. He'd hit level 5 and moved to the city outskirts. He was likely out in a hunting zone without a signal. She explained that because of her unique class, she had to follow her family's arrangements. Through family connections, she had been taken in as a student by a powerful mentor at Nanya Academy and began receiving the Azure Phoenix inheritance. A day ago, she had reached level 10 under the protection of a guardian. She had already mastered 2 powerful skills related to her inheritance. Was this the advantage of an epic tier class? It was the largest city in the Southern Federation. Out of tens of thousands of universities, Nanya Academy was one of the elite Big 5. Only the absolute top geniuses could get in. In Shanghai City, you could count the number of students who made it there each year on 2 hands. Lin Mushua was already a student of a mentor there. Even if I leveled up, her growth speed would always be faster. If I didn't have my system, I probably would have felt inferior. My true strength could crush Lin Mushua's current power several times over. I replied to her telling her I had also hit level 10. That school had the resources and high-tier skills I needed to grow. Besides, Shanghai City was just a small second-tier base city. I needed to leave to see the wider world. You really hit level 10 already. I'm only level 12, and that's with Hui helping me. Does that mean you can learn your second skill? Don't be greedy for cheap, messy skills just to save money. A few more messages popped up before I could type. Actually, I have a good relationship with Sister Juno. If you run into trouble, ask her for help. If you see a skill you like at the Heavenly Book Pavilion, just tell her. I felt a sudden warmth in my chest. I had been an orphan for 18 years. Being remembered and cared for like this felt good. She must have talked to Xi Junyao and heard about me buying that trash Fireball book. I hadn't learned it yet. While the shop owner was looking for books for me, that was a game of luck. The Heavenly Book Pavilion controlled 90% of the market. I started walking toward the tallest building on the commercial street. From what the shop owner told me, a scroll artist was at least an epic tier profession. They didn't just copy scrolls like a basic scribe. They could replicate a scroll perfectly, create new ones from blueprints, or even improve existing ones. They used their own knowledge and experience to craft brand new skill scrolls from scratch, bringing things into existence that had never been seen before. When I entered the Heavenly Book Pavilion, I didn't head for the front desk. I took a chance and used the contact information Lin Mushua had given me to reach out to Xi Junya. Even if she was close with Mushua, she was the head of the entire pavilion. She was powerful, busy, and probably didn't have time for a nobody like me. A crystal chandelier hung from a gilded dome, casting shimmering light over deep red carpets and sandalwood furniture. The walls were inlaid with jade, and the shelves were packed with ancient porcelain and famous calligraphy. Even the floor was made of emerald gradestone. Behind a heavy desk stood Xi Junyao. A few loose strands brushed against her face. She was leaning over a sheet of gold fleck paper, holding a brush with practiced ease. The sunlight through the window caught her wrist, making her skin look even whiter than the paper. I caught my breath, afraid to move and break the moment. Suddenly, the image of that mysterious scroll artist flashed in my mind. The profile, the grace, it all overlapped perfectly with the woman standing in front of me. "You're here." Xi Junyao set the brush down. "Miss Xi Junyao, sorry for the intrusion," I said. I had a theory, but I kept it to myself for now. "She's been taken in as a student by a mentor at Nanjiang Academy. Which skill book did you have your eye on? I'll have someone bring it to you immediately." She was beautiful, but she was also a shark. "I actually bought a scroll here before," I said, refusing to let her pressure me. "I want to know who the scroll artist was that created it. Most people in a place like Shanghai City didn't even know they existed." That was why that fireball scroll had sat on the shelf for so long at 80,000 gold. No one understood what it really was. I was the kid who bought it. Even if it was technically a failure, it meant something to her. I want to ask that person for a favor. I want to improve a skill scroll. She stared at me for a long time, and I felt a strange shiver. It felt like she was looking right through me. She was definitely using some kind of high-level inspection skill. "You actually learned my fireball skill?" she asked, her voice full of disbelief. And there, sitting in my skill column, was that lone, worthless fireball. It was your fireball. She was young, yet she ran this place. Her talent as a scroll artist explained everything. "Then the skill I learned is yours." I don't think she ever expected someone to actually learn that skill. She probably thought it would just be kept as a collector's item. Knowing it was now part of some kid's permanent stats seemed to bother her. "You're full of surprises. But I'm curious, how did you get to level 10 in just a few days using a skill like that?" Luckily, the system was invisible. Not even a god-tier inspection skill could find that. Mushua was level 10 because she was an epic-tier genius with a massive family backing her. I was a common mage with a trash skill and 0 resources. Getting to level 10 this fast shouldn't have been possible. She was probably wondering if that weak fireball was actually stronger than it looked. She had no idea that if I hadn't been capped by the novice dungeon, I'd probably be level 20 by now. "Suit yourself," she said, not pushing it. "It's a haste scroll," I said, pulling out the green paper. "I want to reduce the cooldown and the mana cost." Jiang took the scroll and looked at it. Her face immediately twisted into an expression of pure disgust. "If you want a second skill, I have dozens of top-tier grade 1 scrolls in this building that are 100 times better than this. I have items in my private collection that aren't even for sale to the public," Jiang said, her eyes fixed on me. "I can open those up for you." I could tell she thought I was handsome and smart, but my choices were making me look like a complete idiot in her eyes. This was a massive favor from the head of the Heavenly Book Pavilion, and I was wasting it on a piece of trash. To her, this wasn't just my reputation on the line. "No need," I said, shaking my head. She gripped the green scroll so hard, I thought she might rip it to shreds right then and there. "If it's not possible, then forget it," I said, reaching out to take it back. "Do you have any idea what it costs to hire a scroll master? That's enough to buy 1,000 copies of this garbage haste skill." I knew scroll masters were high status, but that price was insane. "Of course," she said, her chin tilting up with a flash of pride. "If I do it personally, I turn down 10 million gold contracts every day. The line of people begging me for scrolls stretches from Shanghai City to Nanja." She wasn't bragging about being a rich socialite or a beauty on some goddess list. She was a master of her craft. "Glad you finally came to your senses. I'll have someone take you to the treasury. We have plenty of wind element skills that are actually useful." No. The better the skill, the longer the cooldown usually is. But the power and efficiency make them worth it. "We have a wind painting skill in the vault." Wind painting sounded amazing to anyone else, but to me, a haste with an 8-second cooldown was the real treasure. "Are you absolutely sure you want to waste her favor on this?" "No," I said, reaching for the scroll again. I had assumed a favor meant a free skill worth maybe 10,000 gold. "Let's pretend I never came here today." She unrolled the green paper again, casting another inspection spell on it. "Are you really going to make this your second permanent skill?" I didn't answer, but my face gave it away. "If you're going to be this difficult, I'll do it. So, the cost isn't actually that high, since you don't want Mushua to owe me. How about this?" The result was the same, but the meaning was different. I wasn't putting a burden on Mushua anymore. "As long as it's within my power to repay, then you better get strong fast," she said, her fingers tracing the green patterns on the paper. "Otherwise, you'll never be able to pay me back. Now, what exactly do you want changed?" That is the strangest request I've ever heard, even with a low cooldown. Haste is useless if you don't actually move faster. With my talent, even the smallest base boost would become terrifying once it was multiplied 1,000 times. I wanted to watch her work, but she clearly wasn't going to show me her secrets. I expected it to take hours, but in less than 30 minutes, a staff member walked in and handed me a brand new scroll. It said, "Summon the wind as your companion. Asterisk, gain a small movement. Speed boost." Suna had done exactly what I asked. She had slashed the cooldown from 8 seconds down to 3 and dropped the mana cost by 2 points, even though I hadn't asked her to improve the actual effect. The speed boost felt slightly stronger. 2 I wasn't sure if she did that on purpose or if it was just a side effect of her skill, but to me it was perfect. I crushed the scroll, and a burst of clear light flowed into my body. A new icon appeared in my skill bar. Back in her office, CJ Yunya watched me through the surveillance monitor. She even doubted if I had really created that fireball scroll myself. Who would ruin their own future by learning such a weak utility spell? But when she saw me learn it without a second thought, she just sighed and turned off the screen. To her, I was just a strange kid she'd never see again. She didn't actually expect me to repay the favor. People thought I was just a level 10 commoner, but my actual combat power was terrifying. If she needed a level 100 boss dead, all she had to do was give me the coordinates. Finding trash skills with low cooldowns was actually harder than finding rare ones. I wanted to hit level 30 as fast as possible. I stopped at a nearby shop and spent every cent of my savings on mana potions. Once I hit level 30 and completed my class advancement, Tier 1 gear would be useless anyway. I had Fireball for offense and Gale Steps for survival. I left the commercial district and headed for the south gate. In this world, every 30 levels, you undergo a class advancement. You can use a transition voucher or complete a specific quest to evolve. A common mage could become an elite fire mage or an elementalist if you kept succeeding. Even a common class could eventually reach epic or legendary status. Advancement was crucial because of rank suppression. A level 30 mage who had completed their first advancement could easily crush 5 level 30 mages who hadn't. Common mages are weak, but they are flexible. I could become a fire mage to boost my fireball, but then I'd be locked into one element. I remembered reading about rare classes that focused on reducing cooldowns or removing chant times entirely. Instant casting was my dream, but to get there, I needed a specific transition voucher. First, hit level 30. I wanted to push Gale Steps to a 10 0 times boost and Fireball to 100 0 times to unlock its ultimate special effect. Third, find the perfect advanced class and complete a flawless transition. It was time to show this world what a common mage could really do. The most critical part of my preparation was figuring out which class to transition into and how to get the necessary voucher. This required a massive amount of knowledge and reliable information channels. I knew I had to visit the school's library again to study the specific traits of every advanced class. I reached the ruins of Shanghai City. Once I stepped past the southern gates, I was officially in the wilderness. The Federation categorized these areas as low, medium, or high-level zones, followed by danger zones and forbidden lands. Danger zones were crawling with high-level beasts and powerful bosses that could kill even top-tier professionals. And above those sat the Abyss, a place of pure nightmare. The area surrounding Shanghai City was the low-level zone, often called the leveling zone. Every so often, the city sent out military squads and guild members to clear out high-level mutants and demonized creatures. The monsters here were far more numerous and aggressive than anything in the novice dungeons. The zones were marked from level 1 to level 60, with signs posted every 10 levels to warn people not to wander too far. They roam. High-level monsters frequently wandered into low-level areas to hunt, and entire packs would migrate to claim new territory. These drifters were the leading cause of death for professionals. Wind elements surged around me as I transformed into a blur, racing toward the deeper leveling zones. I had cast Gale Steps over 100 times now, unlocking the 10 times and 100 times special effects. I zipped through the level 10 and level 20 zones without stopping. Eventually, I slowed down at a major crossroads marked by a massive signpost. Beyond that was the Thousand Island Sea, a danger zone for level 100 and up. To the east were cliffs and peaks ranging from level 10 to 60. The eastern zones capped out at level 60, which was too low for my needs. The ruins, despite the massive level jump, were perfect. With my current combat power, I wasn't even afraid of a level 90 boss. Shanghai City used to be a crown jewel of the Federation, a massive port city with over 7 million residents. Although the Federation eventually pushed them back and sealed the rift, the city was left in ruins. The government decided to move the survivors to Shanghai City instead of rebuilding. I had only ever seen photos of the ruins in textbooks. One of them, A sharp-eyed assassin in leather armor squinted at my receding back. Zhao Luoqin. Was that Jiang Yuan, he asked. How does he have the guts to head toward the forest alone? Serves him right for refusing to join us before. I heard Lin Mushua had dumped him, and even Zhao Bao ditched him for an elite squad. The group around the assassin began to whisper, their eyes darting toward a noble-looking youth leading them. Brother Chum, the assassin whispered, a sycophantic grin plastering his face. Should we go teach him a lesson? Back at school, I was always at the top of the class rankings, and Mushua and I were inseparable. Zhao Luoqin was at the top of that list. But out here in the wilderness, the rules of the school didn't apply to them. I was just a weak common mage. Their team was stacked with elite class professionals, all pushing level 10. Zhao Luoqin himself was a rare class mage and had already hit level 10. My priority is heading back to the city to learn my second skill. Right. Jiang Yuan is just a joke. He's not even worth your time. Brother Chong? Zhao Luoqin waved his team forward, but he lingered at the back for a second. As a direct descendant of the Zhao family and a rare class talent, Zhao Luoqin wasn't left to wander the wild unprotected, even though he wasn't as prized as Mushua was to the lens. His family had still sent a high-level expert to watch over him from the dark. Usually, these protectors wouldn't help with leveling because the level gap would ruin the experience gain. In this world, killing high-level monsters gave you a massive bonus. He was obsessed with her both for her beauty and her family's power. He thought that once the Lin family separated us, he'd have his chance. But then Mushua was taken away from the city entirely. Feeling satisfied that my death warrant was signed, Zhao Luoqin walked away with a smirk. I was sprinting through the forest, my speed kicking up a gale of wind. I passed several other teams, mostly students under level 30, but I didn't stop. They hid in the soil, the tall grass, and the trees, waiting for the slightest sound to strike. As I dashed between two massive trees, a 2M-long camouflage mantis lunged from the canopy. Its side-like claws swung toward my head with lethal precision. I accelerated instantly, leaving a blur behind. By the time the mantis realized it had missed, I was already dozens of meters away. It was supposed to be the fast one. A massive, terrifying blade of wind, nearly 10 morp long, descended from the sky. When the dust settled, the trees were leveled, and over a dozen camouflage mantises had been reduced to a pile of shredded meat. A few moments later, a dark figure landed on a nearby branch. He looked at the carnage, his eyes wide with shock and confusion. The scent says the kid passed through here, the shadow muttered. System notifications began to flood my vision. Killed level 20 camouflage mantis. Killed level 28 camouflage mantis. Gained 5,300 XPR. 7 skill XP, dar, 1 piece of gear, and mantis meat. Level up. You are now level 12. All attributes plus 10. 10 free attribute points gained. While monsters really were better than dungeons, the few professionals I saw now were high-level, fully geared teams. Approaching another team was seen as a provocation or a prelude to a robbery. The Shanghai city ruins stretched out before me. Broken streets led to dried-up canals. The sea breeze whistled through the hollowed-out buildings, sounding like the collective wail of 7 million ghosts. I took a breath and stepped into the dead city. The echoes of a tragic war from hundreds of years ago seemed to linger in the air like a funeral song. These shadow-scale beasts were huddled around a pile of human remains, tearing at the bones. They were hybrids, the offspring of sea monsters and abyss demons. Worse, they leaked a faint, eerie light from their scales that attracted other monsters. I didn't have any detection skills yet, so I had to rely on my own knowledge to judge their strength. A normal shadow-scale beast was usually between level 30 and level 60. If they were mutated, their horns would turn gold and they'd be at least level 60. Then there were the kings, the bosses. The horns on these three were black. That meant they weren't higher than level 60. I had interrupted their meal, and they weren't happy. They let out a furious roar as they realized a human had dared to wander into their territory. The wind elements around my fingertips became violent and wild. I knew these things had a long-range acid attack. One hit from a monster 40 levels higher than me would end my life. A massive blade of wind tore through the air with a piercing whistle. It struck the first beast right in its flank. Dark green blood sprayed everywhere as the creature let out a scream. Then the blade sliced clean through, carving its body in half. I tapped my toe against the ground, using a burst of wind to propel myself sideways. The acid hit the spot where I'd been standing, hissing as it dissolved the rock into a smoking crater. As I landed, I pushed my mana again. A foul-smelling dark mist erupted from its body. It coiled its legs and lunged at me, trying to crush me with its weight. I lunged to the side while simultaneously conjuring a giant void blade, swinging it upward in a brutal arc. My blade sheared off the beast's spiral horn. It crashed into the ground, writhing and thrashing. It took one more pale green blade to finally finish the job, splitting the monster down the middle. Killing 3 monsters over level 40 gave me a massive experience bonus. I hit level 13 instantly. These weren't low-level dungeon scraps. These were high-level materials that would fetch a fortune back in the city. I equipped my mechanical hunter title and downed a mana potion to recover. But as I prepared to move on, my body stiffened. A dagger engraved with blood-red runes hissed through the air inches from my throat. Even though I hadn't seen the enemy, the sudden disturbance in the windflow warned me something was wrong. Another red rune dagger lunged from my head. I gathered the wind and threw myself backward. It was a person in a long black trench coat, face hidden, holding twin glowing daggers. Because of my system, I'd been steamrolling everything, and my guard had dropped. No matter how strong I felt, I couldn't be careless in the wilderness. Why are you trying to kill me? I was buying time to condense a wind blade. There were no rules out here, but people usually killed for a reason. I didn't think 3 level 40 monsters were worth an assassination attempt. I fired my void blade, but it missed, carving a 100-meter trench into the ground instead. They were fast, extremely fast, and their camouflage was perfect. To get that close without me noticing meant they were likely a rank 2 or even rank 3 professional. Based on that speed, my attacker had to be a rank 3 professional, likely an assassin subclass. If a rank 4 powerhouse had ambushed me, I wouldn't have been able to dodge that first strike. Yet, my reaction speed and the destructive power of my void blade were on par with a rank 3 professional. He must have thought I was hiding a massive secret or carrying a legendary treasure. He was indeed a rank 3 professional, but even at his level, he didn't dare to take my void blade head on. In a direct fight, he wasn't sure he could win. It was stalking and assassination. He was a patient hunter, waiting for his prey to show a single moment of weakness. He didn't need to be lucky every time. He just needed me to mess up once. "I know you're still there," I called out into the silence. I kept my windshield active, swirling around me. If he stepped close, the air currents would alert me instantly. But as long as he stayed hidden, I was stuck in a defensive rut. It was time to use a big move. This time, I didn't summon the pale green glow of wind. Instead, a violent, seductive crimson flame erupted from my palms. I couldn't pinpoint his exact location, but that didn't mean I was out of options. A terrifying surge of fire elements erupted from me like a volcanic explosion, spreading outward in a wave of molten heat. In a heartbeat, the earth turned blood red. 9 massive pillars of flame shot toward the sky, sealing off a radius of several hundred meters. I stood at the center of a literal sea of magma. Even a rank 3 professional would struggle to survive in this furnace. Hidden in the searing heat, the Shadow Walker was panicking. No rank 1 mage could cast a spell like this. He figured, I must have activated a high-level one-time use magic scroll out of desperation. But the aura coming off this fire was rank 4. For the first time, he felt a desperate urge to run. His instincts as an assassin were screaming at him to flee, or he would die here. But when he tried to move, he realized he was trapped. This was the first time I went all out. I unleashed the spell with a 50,000-fold power amplification. I didn't care about the consequences or the collateral damage anymore. Countless sparks of golden red light gathered in the rift, condensing into massive flaming meteors. They were coated in celestial fire, dripping with molten lava, carrying the weight of total destruction. They roared through the air, screaming as they fell toward the ruins of Shanghai City. Deep within the ruins, a team of elite professionals was busy fighting a Shadow Forest beast boss. When the sky lit up, they stopped in their tracks. "It has to be at least a rank 5 spell," the leader whispered, his voice trembling. "A rank 5 archage. The City Lord is rank 5. But he's a melee class, not a caster. There are no rank 5 fire archmages in Shanghai City. Did someone come from another base city? These rank 3 elites didn't even care about the boss anymore. As more meteors appeared, the impact zone began to expand, creeping closer and closer to their position. But the boss is almost dead. A teammate cried out. The captain didn't wait for an argument, even though they were frustrated. They followed. They knew the difference between a payday and a funeral. Every professional within the Sky Ruins was terrified. They didn't care who the Archmage was or why he was angry. All of them fleeing from the divine wrath falling from the sky. Groups of shadow-horned beasts were everywhere, frantically fleeing the area before the flames could swallow them whole. The once silent ruins had turned into a chaotic nightmare of panic. No one dared to stay except for one person. Every escape route he tried was blocked by a sea of heat. He was trapped in a cage of his own making. Ancient crumbling stone walls vanished instantly, replaced by a storm of dust and fire. With just that one strike, the shadow lurker hiding in the darkness was torn apart. His flesh incinerated before he could even scream. Meteors continued to rain down, sending shockwaves of heat, screaming in every direction. Even the rotworms hiding deep in the sewers were blasted into charred powder by the sheer force of the thermal waves. The ruins within 1,000 EV radius were leveled. Buildings that had stood for centuries were flattened into pancakes. I hadn't expected the power of the Heaven-Burning Meteor to be this terrifying. On the edge of the ruins, a team of professionals scrambled out of the dust, looking back at the inferno with pale faces. Their hearts were hammering against their ribs. If they had been just a few seconds slower, they would have been buried or burned alongside the monsters. I was just as shocked as they were. The damage was far greater than when I had used it in the dungeon. I hadn't held anything back because I wanted that assassin dead. I had killed a level 54 shadow-horned beast, 300,000 experience. A level 72 mutated shadow-horned beast, 5.4 million experience. And then the big one. I had slain a level 90 shadow-horned beast king, a regional boss. The rewards were staggering. 100 million experience points, 5,000 skill experience, 5 set-piece equipment items, a dark orb, 10 entry tickets to the Sky Sea Ruins dungeon, a class advancement certificate, 2 skill scrolls, and since it was a first kill, I received 10 books of knowledge and 50 attribute pages. My level didn't just rise, it exploded. I couldn't go any higher until I completed my class advancement. Leveling up by hunting high-level mobs gave massive bonuses, and the drop rate was insane. I opened my status window to check my progress. My spirit attribute had skyrocketed to 670 points, more than double my other stats. This was thanks to the attribute pages I consumed. As a first-tier professional, I could use up to 300 of these pages. These pages were rare drops from bosses or first kill rewards. That was more expensive than most Tier 1 gear. To max out my attributes before my class trial, I need about 60,000 gold coins to buy the remaining pages. Looking at the mountain of materials and gear I just looted, I figured I could easily clear a few hundred gold. I made a decision. I scrolled through the kill logs one last time, looking for the main target. There it was. Level 87 Shadow Walker, a third-tier assassin. He had dropped 7 pieces of equipment, 10 invisibility potions, and nearly 100 recovery potions. Assassins were notorious for killing other players for loot because of their stealth skills. But I didn't think this guy was just a random thief. I looked down at the Shadow Walker's loot. I was wearing basic clothes and had no visible gear. Why would a third-tier assassin waste his time on a nobody like me? When a professional dies, most of their inventory spills out like a fountain of wealth. This guy's inheritance was actually worth more than the level 90 boss I just killed. It's the grim reality of the wilderness. Killing players is often more profitable than killing monsters. In Shanghai City, there were many people named Zhao, but only one Zhao family had the power to keep a third-tier professional as a personal enforcer. The name Zhao Luoqin flashed in my mind. He was the only person from that family I knew. More importantly, I knew he was obsessed with Lin Mushua. He acted like a gentleman on the surface, but underneath he was a snake. Back when rumors first started about me and Mushua, he sent people to warn me off. If I didn't have my system, that assassin would have ended me. Jiang Yuan wasn't trying to teach me a lesson. He wanted me erased from the world. You'd better stay inside the city walls forever. If you step out, I'll pay this debt back 100 times over. If he played for keeps, so would I. With my current strength, I didn't even fear a 5th-tier professional. There were only a handful of those in all of Shanghai City. I could ignore the local powerhouses, but the city was backed by the Federation. My survival skills were still lacking. I stood in the middle of the burning ruins of Shanghai City. I started casting 1 fireball every second. My Heaven-Burning Meteor was as strong as a 5th-tier spell. But it wasn't a guaranteed win against a 5th-tier expert. I needed the 100,000 times amplification effect. To get that, I needed to cast 50,000 more fireballs. With the massive pile of mana potions I'd looted from the assassin, I didn't have to worry about my energy. The monsters were either dead or gone, and any sane professional had already fled the heat. Unlike the dungeon worlds, the real world was stable. While I was calmly grinding my skill count, Shanghai City was panicking. Massive elemental fluctuations detected in the Shanghai City ruins. A technician shouted, "Its fire-type coverage area is 5 km." A level 5 alarm was the city's highest threshold. The report was immediately uploaded to the provincial capital and the Federation. People could enter, but no one could leave. The city's defensive array was primed for activation. Should we recall the army from the mines? An officer asked. City Lord Head Xiao Yu, General Gao Jun, and Jing Ran, the president of the professional guild. All 3 were 5th-tier professionals, the peak of Shanghai City's power. Behind them stood a dozen 4th-tier elites. Satellite images showed the ruins transformed into a sea of lava and flame. The fire wasn't going out. It was spreading. It showed the meteors falling from the sky. Even through the blurry footage, the sheer crushing pressure of the spell was terrifying. City Lord Head Xiaoyu pointed to a faint blurry figure standing motionless in the center of the inferno. "Sir, that's the clearest shot we have," a technician replied. "Since when does a Tier 5 spell cover miles of land? If we're talking about the total danger zone, it's closer to 10 mi. This has to be the work of a high-level Tier 5 archage at the very least." Everyone's attention shifted to Song Jingren, the president of the professional guild. He was a white-haired veteran and a 5th-tier mage himself. He explained that the fire magic I was using looked like the 5th-tier spells Heavenly Flame Meteor or Starfall. But there were 2 major differences. It was a high-level elemental flame, something usually seen in 7th-tier spells. It was spreading, consuming everything it touched. The core impact zone spanned 3 km, but the total area of effect reached 15 km. Gao Jun, the commander of the city guard, looked uneasy. Either this person was a 5th-tier archmage with a god-tier skill who could likely defeat Song Jingran in a fight, or more likely, this was a high-level powerhouse. At least a 6th-tier Grand Magus, if not a 7th-tier Flame Saint. When Song Jingran said 7th tier, the room went silent. City Lord He Xiaoyu asked if they could identify me. Song Jingran shook his head. The leaders wondered why someone so powerful was fishing in a low-level ruin like Shanghai City instead of a high-level battlefield. Ultimately, they decided to lower the alert to level 3, but strictly forbade anyone from leaving the city or approaching the ruins. They just hoped I was passing through. By the second day, the alarm screamed again. The command center was even more crowded than before. The meteor shower was several times larger and denser than the day before. I was a tall figure wreathed in roaring flames, floating in the center of the inferno like a god. They just hung there, frozen in midair. The command center was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The technician, drenched in cold sweat, confirmed the feed was live. They began to orbit me, circling my body in a terrifying dance of fire. Song Jingren's voice trembled as he spoke. He ordered the footage to be sent to the capital and the Federation immediately. An unregistered 7th tier powerhouse was a massive variable, if I were an enemy or a cultist. Shanghai City was already dead. The 100 times visual effect granted by my system, I had transformed into a 5M tall giant of crimson gold radiating pure majesty. This form allowed me to merge with the ultimate fire element. Every flame in the area was mine to command, and my skill power had doubled. Standing there surrounded by my orbiting suns, I truly felt like the only god in this world. No matter how powerful their spells are, they always have to deal with long cooldowns. But for me, that rule didn't exist. I could cast a skill every single second, as long as my mana held out. I could stay in this flame god form forever. My fire resistance was at 100%, making me completely immune to any heat. Even if a 1003 3rd Realm Shadow Walkers attacked me at once, while I stood perfectly still, they couldn't even scratch me. I spent time flying through the sea of fire, testing my limits. I realized the flame god form had even more potential than I first thought. My fireball technique had already reached the 100 times amplification mark. The next stage was a millionfold increase. Even if I didn't eat or sleep and cast it once every second, I'd still need 10 days of non-stop grinding to get there. Even without officially advancing my class, I had 2 empty skill slots waiting to be filled. While still in my flame god form, I tried to summon the wind elements, but they were instantly incinerated by my aura. I thought about saving 1 slot for a lightning skill. I wasn't being reckless. I was being practical. Gale Steps had a wind blade effect, but the damage was too low to matter in a real fight. The elemental transformation was great, but what if I fought someone else who was immune to fire? A defense skill would keep me alive, and a healing skill would let me recover without relying on others. Unlike other adventurers, I didn't have a team. I didn't have a tank to protect me or a priest to mend my wounds. I was interested in rare powers like space, time, or holy magic. But those skill scrolls were impossible to find on the market. I decided to focus on what I had. The system was my real trump card. My fireball had already evolved from simple sparks into the domineering crimson gold flames I held. Now I started grinding Gale Step Sting. Reaching the 1 million times mark unlocked a new effect, Meteor Blade Shield. It allowed me to merge with the wind, giving me the speed of a falling meteor and a massive boost to my evasion. Everywhere I moved, I left behind a trail of razor-sharp wind blades. I pushed Gale Steps to the 1000 times mark and unlocked the Gale domain. I could now manifest a sphere of wind 500 s wide. Inside this dome, I could shred anything to pieces. I could fly freely, ignore obstacles, and dodge every single incoming attack with 100% success rate. I even gained temporary control over 100 different low-tier wind spells. It was a total sphere of influence. My Gale Steps time was down to 2 seconds. To get the next 90,000 stacks, I needed about 50 hours of continuous casting. Factoring in breaks for food and sleep, it would take me 3 days. 3 days wasn't long at all. Once I had 100 times multipliers on both fire and wind, I would essentially be wielding the power of 6th tier forbidden magic while only being at the 1st realm. The Lin family wouldn't know what hit them. After all, Fireball had given me the flame god form. Gale Steps wouldn't let me down. Besides, the ruins of Shanghai City had essentially become my private territory. No one was brave enough to disturb me here. At the gates of Shanghai City, the atmosphere was tense. A group of the city's strongest experts stood behind him, their expressions a mix of respect and anxiety. They were all staring at the horizon. Suddenly, a streak of deep purple light tore through the clouds like a blade cutting through silk. A massive wave of energy surged toward the city. It had the wings of an eagle and the body of a lion covered in dark purple scales, etched with anti-magic runes. As it roared, the air vibrated so hard that the defensive enchantments on the city walls flickered and dimmed. In the center of his chest plate sat a fist-sized anti-magic core, glowing with a light that devoured any magic that came near it. This was the inspector. "Welcome to Shanghai City, Lord Inspector," Xiao Yu said, his voice trembling. Even as a melee fighter, he felt crushed by the man's presence. Hovering above the knight's head were his stats for all to see. He wasn't hiding anything. Level 172, 6th turn, epic class, anti-magic knight. Is that person still in the Shanghai ruins? The Federation was worried. Multiple meteor strikes had been reported in the ruins, suggesting an unregistered 6th turn Grand Magister was lurking nearby. They sent Tang Zhuan specifically because his class was the ultimate counter to mages. If this stranger turned out to be an enemy, Tang Zhuan was the executioner. He's likely still there, He, Xiao Yu, and a local association president, Xiao Jing, ran scrambled onto a storm griffin to follow. Even at full speed, their third-tier mount struggled to keep up with the inspector's sixth-tier beast. Has he killed anyone? Has he attacked the city professionals coming back from the ruins? Say he hasn't targeted anyone. He stays within the ruins and hasn't approached the city gates. If it were a hostile mage, the city would already be in ruins. But even a neutral powerhouse was a variable the Federation wanted to control. When we meet him, watch your tone, he warned. Meanwhile, back in the ruins, I was exhausted but focused. Galcast multiplier, 9,998 times. Galcast multiplier, 9,999 times. Gale steps cast multiplier 10,000 times. Void Phoenix Empress. The Void Phoenix Empress allowed me to tap into the mysterious Void realm and form a soul contract with a legendary beast. It was a descendant of a divine creature that controlled the wind of the void, a force capable of shredding anything. It could fly thousands of miles in an instant. Most importantly, while it was summoned, any damage I took would be shared with the beast. Gale was a basic wind spell, yet its 100,000 times multiplier effect had turned me into a summoner. I had just gained the ability to call forth a Void Phoenix Empress. As a descendant of a divine beast, its combat power would be immense. It could serve as both a high-speed mount and a powerful battle partner. This wasn't some magical construct made of energy. I stood in the ruins analyzing the skill when a voice suddenly boomed across the sky. It carried a weight that made the very air feel heavy. Would your excellency be willing to come out and meet us? Golden red flames erupted from my body, manifesting the massive form of the flame god armor around me. I looked up toward the source of the voice. High above the sea of flames, several dark figures hovered in the sky. I wondered if they were powerhouses from Shanghai City, with 2 maxed out skill effects. I wasn't afraid of a level 6 professional, let alone level 5, but I didn't want to blow my cover. Being a mediocre student was the perfect camouflage. If people like Zhao Luoqin thought I was weak, they would only send low-level assassins that I could easily kill. If the world knew my true strength, my enemies would send level 6 experts or worse. We were simply passing by and wanted to say hello. As I deliberated, I felt a strange ripple in the air. The Federation must have sent someone from the capital, likely a level 6 expert. Up in the clouds, Tang Xuan stood with City Lord He Xiao Yu and Guild President Song Jinggran. The 2 local leaders looked grim, feeling the heat of the flames, even from this distance. Sir, does he refuse to see us? He Xiao asked nervously. His anti-magic aura was suppressing the flames, but it was taking everything he had. He wasn't entirely sure he could win if a fight broke out. If it comes to blows, do you have the upper hand if he is at my level? It's a 50-50 split, Tang Xuan admitted. A forbidden magic knight was supposed to be the natural counter to all mages. Suddenly, a piercing cry shattered the silence. It sounded like a phoenix, but carried a metallic, soul-crushing resonance. This wasn't the sound of a common bird. It was the roar of the Void Phoenix Empress. The mounts the 3 men were riding panicked. The 2 lower-level flying beasts were knocked unconscious instantly, falling toward the earth. Then a cyclone of green wind tore through the sea of flames. The Void Phoenix Empress soared into the sky. Its feathers were a stunning jade green, trailing blue and gray light like a comet, each one shimmering with lethal wind energy. Standing firmly on the back of this terrifying beast was a figure encased in golden red armor. I asked, my voice amplified and echoing with divine authority. I recognized the city lord and the guild president from the news, but they were just background characters. Now, the man in the lead was the real threat, a level 172 forbidden magic knight. He stood there as a level 172 forbidden magic knight, a clear warning to anyone watching. He represented the Federation, and he wanted me to know it. For a mage like me, a forbidden magic knight was a natural enemy. He introduced himself as an inspector for the Nanjing province. He told me he'd seen the meteors falling over Shanghai City for days and feared a disaster was coming. He apologized for the intrusion, claiming he didn't know a master was practicing here. He saw my flames, and he saw the Void Phoenix Empress beneath me. Even as a high-level knight, he knew a fight against 2 sixth-turn entities would be a gamble. I never expected the Federation to send a specialized mage killer to my doorstep. We were both standing on the edge of a blade, neither of us wanting to fall. The meteors you mentioned were just my skills, I said, my voice echoing through the air. I didn't realize I would disturb the authorities. Rest assured, I have no intention of damaging the city. Beside him, the city lord, He Xiaoyu and the guild president Jing ran. The tension that had been strangling the air snapped. Tang wasn't done, though. He asked where I came from and if I was a citizen of the Federation. When I didn't answer, he tried a different approach. I apologize if I overstepped, Tang said, quickly pivoting. Could you at least give me a code name? If you are registered as a friendly, it will prevent unnecessary conflicts with other high-level professionals in the future. Many powerful people in the Federation kept their identities secret. I thought about the power flowing through me, the divine form I had taken. Using the word God in a title was incredibly arrogant. It was a name reserved for the delusional or the truly invincible. It was just a mask, a layer of protection to keep my real life safe. If the Federation wanted a name, I would give them a legend to worry about. A bold name, Tang said with a thin smile. I don't expect you to add me on the standard comms network, but we should have a way to talk. I reached out and caught it as he tossed it through the air. And a token from you, he asked. I reached down and plucked a jade green feather from the wing of the Void Phoenix Empress. He had turned a potential disaster into a connection with a powerful, mysterious mage. I patted the back of the Void Phoenix Empress with a deafening cry. The beast beat its wings. A cyclone of green wind exploded around us, and we shot into the sky. The crisis was over. But the name Flame God was just beginning to spread. Behind me, the two inspectors, He Xiaoyu and his partner, began their slow descent toward the forest floor. Meanwhile, Tang Xuan opened a holographic interface. He was already recording the day's events to report them to the higher-ups. Codename Flame God. Estimated level peak of the 6th transition. Wind-type war beast suspected of possessing divine beast. Azure Phoenix bloodline. Danger level 6.5 to 7 stars. Soon the detailed file on Flame God was uploaded to the Federation's central database. The Federation's foundation was terrifyingly deep. Just to scout me out, they had sent a powerful 6th transition demon Forbidden Knight. I sat on the back of the Void Phoenix Empress as we soared through the 9 heavens. I flew deep into the Thousand Island Sea region, carving a massive arc across the map before heading back. The wilderness was a paradise for monsters, and the sky was no different. Massive flying beasts, the undisputed overlords of the clouds, patrolled the air. But the moment the Void Phoenix Empress appeared, they scattered like startled sparrows. Name, Void Phoenix Empress. Race Divine Emperor Clan. Strength, 17,000 Orils, 240%. Spirit, 32,000 plus 500%. Constitution, 25,000 plus 240%. The Void Phoenix Empress's panel was a masterpiece of destruction. Compared to her, I felt like a beggar. And that wasn't even her best stat. Her agility was 40,000 base with a 600% bonus. Doing the math, her actual agility was 300,000. It was measured in millions. 19 million. That was enough for me to cast tens of millions of fireballs without breaking a sweat. Because we shared a soul contract, any damage I took could be transferred to her. Level 180 represented the absolute cap for a 6th transition. This meant Tang Yuan, the knight from before, probably had stats in this ballpark. Even if I won, I would have brought the entire Federation down on my head. I spent the next hour studying the contract. We were battle partners. Her level would rise as I grew. I also noticed a new talent in my own window, God's Envoy contract summoning. And why would a living, breathing, divine Emperor clan creature sign a soul contract with me? I was contracted to the entire race. If this one died, I could just summon another. Was it just the system? Or was there something deeper? Having a 180-level divine protector was cooler than anything those noble families could dream of. I noticed a skill in her list. It said she could change her form. The Void Phoenix Empress let out a low hum. A second later, the weight beneath me shifted. Her face was perfect, blending a cold celestial air with a regal grace. Her skin was translucent, glowing with a faint jade luster, and felt cool to the touch, like a mountain breeze. Her eyebrows were sharp and elegant, like willow leaves tilting upward with a hint of a phoenix's arrogance. Her eyes were a pure deep cyan. When she blinked, I could see tiny wind patterns swirling in her pupils. Her long skirt was a translucent flow of pale blue-green, stitched with 9 phoenix tail feathers that looked so real they seemed to sway in the wind, shedding tiny sparkles of light. I had never seen anyone so beautiful in my life. She didn't look like a real person. She looked like a goddess who had stepped out of a dream. But a second later, the dream turned into a nightmare. I was plummeting from 10,000 m in the sky. From this height, I wouldn't just be bruised. Just as I prepared to try a desperate self-rescue, a cool breeze brushed past me. "Thanks," I gasped quickly, wrapping my arms around her neck. I could smell a faint, milky fragrance. I never expected that high above the clouds. I'd be getting a princess carry from a celestial beauty. The girl's phoenix-like eyes shimmered like green jade. It seemed she didn't know the language of this world yet. But, through our soul contract, I understood her perfectly. I looked at her exquisite face only inches from mine. To be honest, the 100,000 times effect on my Gale steps kept blowing my mind. Who would have thought a simple speed spell would evolve into a peerless girl? With a sharp cry, she transformed back into the 30-meter-tall Void Phoenix Empress. She tossed me onto her back and turned into a streak of cayenne light, racing towards Shanghai City. She stood there with the wind swirling around her long waist-length hair. Through our soul connection, I learned a lot, but because of my level, she was capped at level 180. If she got exhausted, she'd have to return to the Void Realm to recharge her essence. When I tried to ask more about her home or her tribe, she just shook her head. "I can't just call you Void Phoenix Empress all the time." She brushed her hair back, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. It seemed she had never had a name of her own back in the Void Realm. "How about Jiang Honger or Jiang Honger?" She thought about it for a second. "All right, Jiang Honger or it is." I laughed. She just hadn't learned the words yet. From what I could gather, the Void Realm was a closed-off world where only her kind lived. Her soul was anchored in the Void Realm. She would eventually revive there, though it might take time. And if I summoned a new protector too soon after her death, I might get a different Void Phoenix Empress entirely. As we approached the towering walls of Shanghai City, a problem cropped up. I told her, "You look human, but you don't have a federal ID." The gates had strict checkpoints to keep out spies and monsters. Some high-level monsters could take human form, so the guards were always on high alert. She could probably level the whole city if she wanted to, but I didn't want that kind of heat. She turned into a tiny cayenne bird, no bigger than my palm, and perched on my shoulder. Her transformation skill was a lifesaver. No one would suspect a tiny bird was actually a level 180 world boss. No more near-death experiences like the one in the Tonghai ruins. In this world, combat pets weren't rare. Rich people kept them as status symbols, and the military used them as mounts. Most people would just assume she was a harmless pet. A familiar voice shouted. Near another checkpoint, a tall figure in a white priest's robe was running toward me, waving his arms excitedly. He was built like a tank, broad-shouldered and rugged, but he was wearing the holy, delicate robes of a healer. Xiao Bao was built like a tank, with broad shoulders and a rugged frame, but he was wrapped in the delicate, holy white robes of a priest. The contrast was jarring. "I finally found you," Xiao Bao shouted. "Did you just get back from leveling up?" Most of them were basic white-tier items, glowing with a faint pale light. But the staff in his hand was different. Standing behind him were Lu Xing and a few others from their team. It was clear that Xiao Bao was doing well for himself in this group. I hit level 12. We spent the whole day grinding mobs and saved up a decent amount of gold. We came back to rest and restock on potions. But I'm also planning to buy my second skill scroll. His smile faltered slightly as he looked me up and down. "What level are you now?" he asked. His voice was cautious, like he was afraid of hurting my feelings. "If I told you, it would probably give you a heart attack." I didn't give him a straight answer. If it wasn't for the fact that I hadn't completed my class advancement yet, I would have been even higher. Telling him the truth really would have shocked him. Even someone like Lin Mushua with her epic tier class couldn't have hit level 30 in such a short time. Most professionals took at least a month of hard grinding to reach that point. The rules for this year's unified exam were just released. Have you seen them yet? I had been stuck in the Tonghai City ruins for days. The unified exam usually happened 1 month after the awakening ceremony. That month was meant for students to grind and get as strong as possible. If you wanted to get into a university, you had to take the exam and meet the score requirements. If you failed, your options were limited to joining local guilds, small gangs, or private teams. The exams for lifestyle classes and combat classes are separate, Yao Bao explained. This year, the exam is split into 3 stages. He held up a finger. If your level is below 20, you're out. Support classes like his were counted as combat classes for the exam. I nodded. The elimination stage was brutal and simple. Hit level 20 in a month or go home. Xiao Bao continued. Once you reach this part, you're basically guaranteed a spot in a school. They calculate your score based on your level and the rarity of your class. The catch is that you don't get to pick your school. The schools pick you. The higher your rank, the better the university. The Federation was massive with a huge population. Everything else was considered second-rate. The 5 great academies had very limited slots, and every year the competition for them was bloodier than the last. Then there's the 3rd stage, Xiao Bao said, his eyes gleaming. The genius competition. To enter this, you have to meet one of 2 conditions. Xiao Bao finally explained the genius competition, where level 30 candidates or exceptionally rare classes could challenge for the Federation's highest rankings. Jiang Yuan kept his expression casual, because he had already reached the level requirement before most students learned their second skill. Lin Mushua's epic class guaranteed attention, resources, mentors, and a direct path toward the greatest academy in the Southern Federation. His common class guaranteed mockery, underestimation, assassins, and exactly the camouflage his infinite augmentation system needed. Zhao Luoqin still believed Jiang Yuan was prey, while the city authorities searched for a hidden flame god capable of summoning falling stars. Neither side understood that the boy walking through Shanghai carried both identities, plus a level-capped divine beast sharing his soul. The unified exam had not even begun, yet the balance between noble geniuses and ordinary awakeners was already collapsing. His girlfriend awakened an epic class, but Jiang Yuan's secret system would keep multiplying until one basic spell stood above the entire world.